Hello!
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll
Hooray!
begin.
Then we'll begin. Oop,
Then we'll
no, wrong
begin.
way. Oop, that way. There we go. Welcome
That
to
way. There you go.
welcome to the
Hopefully this week, no tech issues. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
we'll
we
see what
say that we've
happens.
actually
Who knows?
technically already
Who
had a tech
knows?
issue because usually, because we're doing this through a Zoom call, usually I can hear Reese, but with the way we've changed the sound thing, now I just couldn't hear them. If we're not doing the actual live stream bit, can't talk to Reese. So, I mean,
Yeah, well,
no,
that's fine. That'll be fine,
that's
won't it?
fine.
I mean,
Not a problem.
excitingly, I can hear myself twice.
You can hear yourself
So
twice.
I can hear an echo of myself. Yeah.
Interesting. That's probably not going to go away. Just so we're clear.
Yeah, I'll work around it. I quite like the sound of my own voice. Hello,
Live with it.
welcome. I've put on a shirt. I haven't worn a shirt like this since 19 which was the year that you can fill in that Simpsons joke. Welcome, one and all. So glad you can join us. This is the Clockwork Miracles live stream.
Reese, just been pointed out to me that you've set your audio frequency wrong, so you're doing that high pitch thing.
No, so this is going through the MacBook. So interestingly,
really?
I haven't set it wrong. It's just it's decided to set it weirdly. Yeah.
Oh, really? There you go. Well, you're doing the high pitch thing. You can leave it if you want, if it's not a simple fix.
Well, it's a simple fix. I'll turn it off and on again. That's the thing.
What happens. See what happens. It's not the COVID.
I mean, now it's using the internal microphone, so it's going to be a slightly different microphone. But give us a second. It's killed the webcam as well at the same time. That's exciting.
I'm so glad we started this.
No.
We'll have no tech issues. Although these are Reese's and tech issues, which are the sort of less independent ones, largely.
So is that better audio-wise?
I think you're no longer doing this, which is what you were doing before.
Great. Rob, apparently you sound very quiet. I'm going to change. So let's do this.
There you go. Is that better? I can turn myself up.
I'm going to go here first. This is a different camera, and now we're going to try this camera, and we're going to see what we can do.
Streamy business. Streamy business.
The worst thing about this is we spent about 2 hours between yesterday and today sorting this out.
Like earlier today, we were sat there going, "This work, everything work. You sound good, look good, everything's fine, everything's working." Yeah, actually come to do it, ruined. Whole thing's ruined.
Let's go to this camera. Let's see if it works. Let's wait for it. Hey, there we go.
There you go.
And now we change the settings so that it's on movie mode. And now we zoom in a bit. Oh, that's too far. That's too
too much.
Let's leave it at that. Welcome,
like
one and all.
The start of Aladdin where he goes, "Come closer." Too close.
Too close. Welcome. So glad to have people on the stream. Hello, James Stenning. I'm glad this is the favourite part of your week. Hello, Liam. This is the show that basically you designed everything for. Again. Hello, Clive. Hello,
my
Emma.
Part of the week as well, pretty much. From a business.
Hello, Sense Allsall. Hello, Pat. Hello, Simi. Ooh, or Simi 00. Not sure which that is. Alex Tester in the house. So there we go. Alex reckons we're on for an excellent tech week. I think we're all right now. I think we're in.
I think we're all right now. I mean, it did take me a full hour to compress down the video today because it was just really huge files, and it was all. You know that thing that videos do where they kind of go whenever you move. You know what I mean? Like de-interlacing, or do you de-interlace them? So does that mean that's interlacing? Is that interlacing? Is that what that is?
You should get those laces that you just pull and do the little toggle on. That's just a lot easier.
That's the future of us. That's the future.
That is the future.
Anyway, we're going to watch Clockwork Miracles, which is our show from Edinburgh Fringe.
Set the scene. This is interesting because 2012 was the first year that we weren't teaching. We gave up our jobs in December 2011, so we had a lot of time to write this show. In fact, what we used to do was we made one of the bedrooms in my house into an office by putting a kitchen table in it and covering it in rubbish.
Yep.
And we used to
sit
there
like magic rubbish.
Magic rubbish. We used to do Monday to Friday, 10 till 4, because Rob lived down the road. He only lived a 5-10 minute walk away, and we used to do 5 days a week, 10 till 4. And what a working week that was!
I mean, it wasn't like hard work. We would often fall asleep in a sunbeam. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I will fall asleep quite. I mean, was this the show that we wrote where I woke up halfway through writing a trick?
I can't remember. There was one point when we were writing at Reese's house once, and Reese fell asleep in the sun, as Reese's want to do. And at one point, then just woke up and went, put the curtains around the box. we weren't writing a trick with a box or doing anything to do with a box. Marisa dreamt a trick that we had a problem with, come up with a solution, woke up and told me the solution to that trick that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So
that was fun. But also it was this show actually we got a lot of the tricks in early doors at a preview at the Adelaide Fringe. As mentioned last week, we quit our teaching jobs in order to be able to go to the Adelaide Fringe partly, and so we were there for January and February. We don't have a video of that show, but a quick rundown of what happened in Adelaide.
It was hot.
It was very hot. Rob got heat stroke and had to do shows, then run out the back of the tent and vomit straight after the shows because he was so ill.
It wasn't that. That was only one, I think. And I didn't miss a show. I remember our producer at the time, Sharon.
No, you didn't miss a show.
Didn't miss a show.
Didn't miss a show. No, didn't miss a show. You spent a lot of time in the flat we were in with no shirt on, though.
Yeah, it was very hot. Yeah. It was Australia.
Yeah, you did spend most of your time with no shirt on in that flat. We met some new friends out there. We had a lot of fun. We also then went on to Melbourne and Sydney and had some fun out there as well. The weirdest thing about that gig was, though, that have we told the IKEA story already? I don't think we have we?
I genuinely don't know. It's all a horrible blur.
So we were flying out doing one of our shows on just regular luggage to Adelaide, and one of the tricks required a very specific height stool. And we worked out that IKEA at the time sold stools that you could just about take apart and get into a large suitcase, but they were 7 kilos each. And we needed 2 of them. So we used 14 kilos of our luggage allowance. And literally, not a joke and not an exaggeration, the moment you walk out of the arrivals door in Adelaide Airport, in front of you is a large blue building with the words IKEA on the side. We were furious. Yeah. Absolutely furious. Clive Parkin says, lovely place, Adelaide. Not sure which Adelaide you've been to. It's really dull.
I mean, the problem with Adelaide is that everything happens in 1 month. So all the festivals.
Everything does happen in 1 month. Yeah. I mean, and we were staying in the CBD, like the wildlife sanctuary we went to, and the Glenelg Beach and all that. They were lovely, but the centre of Adelaide, very dull.
Yeah, business district, isn't it? Anyway, so that's basically. So this show sort of found its feet initially in the Adelaide Fringe and sort of Australia over there, and then more bits of it came together. And this was our 4th Edinburgh show.
Liam just asked, was the Adelaide trip the one where there was a huntsman spider on the lighting desk? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, woo! Didn't like that.
This was our 4th Edinburgh show, and I can't remember what drove us to do this. I guess we'd moved to a bigger room. So the room this is filmed at Edinburgh in the dining room space in the Gilded Balloon TV.
Which is the Student Union building. So Edinburgh Student Union is the oldest purpose-built student union in the world, apparently. And the dining room space is built into the dining room. Unsurprisingly.
And so we're in the same. Basically, if you watch the Furley's Bamboozlement stream, we're in the same building, but not the same room, and it's a bigger room. And I think we wanted to do like a thing with a set. So in the set for this show, there's like a bunch of stuff from our other shows that I'd almost completely forgotten we did. But we have
that big thing with all the posters on the back, and
we've got posters on the back, little things. This was also the year that we decided to do a second show, our close-up show that we don't have footage of, called Lying Cheating Scoundrels, and this show was at 4:00, and Scoundrels was at midnight.
Not a sensible idea.
Yeah, that was such a bad idea. We had an 8-hour gap between shows, and Scoundrels was really fun to do, but it meant that for the entire month we were horribly exhausted.
Completely and utterly exhausted. I think this is filmed towards the end of the run, where we are basically on our knees.
I don't know when this was filmed. I haven't checked. So I have no idea if something goes wrong. The one thing I have checked with this footage is that because it was filmed on a camera in 2012,
it's not HD for a start.
It's not HD, and a few of the tricks are done in spotlights, and the lights become very bright. So right at the end of the show, hello Fizzgig. This is Fizzgig. Right at the end of the show, we're going to cut to a different show. That's because we had 4 versions filmed. I just found the version with the bit where you could almost see that trick, as opposed to just being a glowing white blob.
Yeah. Also, at the end, do stick around at the end, because we're going to tell you about the exciting plans we have. I say exciting. The plans we have for continuing doing this sort of Tuesday night, Morgan and West Tuesdays, post running out of shows.
Yeah, which we are rapidly going to do.
We're also rapidly running out of different things that we can wear that look interesting. So next week, expect the topless edition. So
I'm just going to start digging into our costume bank. But
I mean, I've got your costume behind me, which definitely won't fit me. No. So there you go.
You never know. Anyway, we should start. Worth noting, the start of this, again, because we're doing a sort of, at this point in our Edinburgh career, doing a bit of a oh, look, we've done shows before. the sound design done by Liam is like bits of other sound design that goes. So if it is a bit loud and weird, that's not your mic's going, your things going around. It deliberately is distorting.
Yeah. So Liam, who is in on the stream again, did a lot of design work for this show. And if you Google Morgan and West Clockwork Miracles, you'll find some really excellent press photos that he spent a lot of time making it look like we had oil on our faces. Yeah. Liam did a really cracking job with this one. So lots of people have gone, Cat! Yes, that is Fizzgig. Marty might make an appearance later. Next week, I might bring one of the guinea pigs through. We'll see what happens. And Julian N asks, I must ask, what's in the safe? Well,
nothing.
Until very recently, it was very empty because we forgot the combination. And in trying to break into it, it would make a horrible beeping sound for 5 minutes at a time. I managed to eventually get in after an hour of this and a large coat hanger and whatnot. Currently, it is a cat walking across. It's a Kosh safe. It's there are
where we keep our chemicals when we're touring the science show.
Yeah, there are chemicals in there that we use for the science show that are flammable. So if they do decide to burst into flames, that safe is fireproof. So they'll just burst into flames from the safe.
Burn the safe.
Yeah.
And on that happy note, let's jump into the show.
Let's go into the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a duo of magicians. Put your hands up, Gregorian magic duo. Marvelous magical mannerisms. 19th century's greatest magical duo. We small West and West.
It's still my favourite introduction to the show, where it's little snippets and lots and lots of different shows we've done with it zooming in on the radio. And we wanted to use it again at some point. We've never got around to it.
Yeah, I'm very fond of that as an opening to the show, and it's interesting. I was thinking about this with reference to Clockwork Miracles as well. That one of the things I think that we could do in Edinburgh that we couldn't do or don't do on tour now is do slightly more ambitious openings that are slightly more theatrical. Because I think in Edinburgh, basically, people are prepped for like, I don't know what this is, but I'm kind of invested because it's the Fringe. Whereas on tour, they are always a little bit more hesitant because they're not like seeing 8 shows that day or whatever. And so on tour, we have to work a little bit harder to be like, here's who we are and what we do and establishing who we are at this point. Whereas when we're doing this kind of show in Edinburgh, a lot of these people might have seen us before or been flying by us, been talking about the show. And I think Edinburgh in general, you can get away with doing a little bit more of a sort of avant-garde start.
There, you can take that card. And in fact, you can show me the face of the card. There's not that sort of trick, so it does not matter if I see it. Excellent, James. Now, I'm going to...
That saying says, look at me, I think.
Is that all right?
And watch closely.
Oh, watch closely.
You just use it to sign in, just perhaps press the top in that white space there. Excellent, James. And read out the pen and return to Mr. Morgan. Thank you.
And one of the interesting things about this show is that a lot of this show is our genuine working repertoire still. So if you've seen us recently, especially if you've seen us do like a cabaret or a corporate event or something, no, not recently, but within the last few years, you may well have seen us do this trick. A lot of our, what I would think of as current material is basically from this show.
Yeah. Apparently, Rob, as well, the music, the volume of the show isn't dipping when I talk, just to let you know.
I've just fixed that, I think.
Great. So yes, if you want to watch this trick properly, there are several versions of it on YouTube that you can find. In particular, if you go to the Oxford Imps channel, I think you'll find a version of this from 2014.
Yes, a well-filmed version of it.
Approximately. Now, James, I should be honest, I am a magician, and as such I know exactly...
So, taking a moment to look around the set here for a second, as we were saying, there's lots of stuff from our other shows. So we have all the posters of our other shows on that board behind Reese just there. So like every show we've done up until this point on its poster board. We also have hung on the hat stand, we have the dressing gown that we wore as Sherlock and the hats from the custom change trick in Crime Solving. And on the far left, you can also see the jacket that I wore in Crime Solving that I got killed in. And on the right in the blue trunk, you've got the red waistcoat that I wore in Bamboozlement. So we basically went, we've got all this stuff. This should be the set. That's what we did for this show.
Yeah. The basic premise of the trick, by the way, is it was inspired by Selfish, which is a Penn and Teller trick. And the idea is that the person on stage gets one card trick, everyone else thinks they can see how it's done, and it's rather elaborate. And then at the end, all is not as it seems.
So essentially here, obviously, the audience can see there's a deck of cards behind Reese's back. The gentleman sat down. Cannot see.
Further away than you are, you can see that this tack is in fact twice fold sealed. First there's this transparent wrapper around the outside, and that is intact, yes? Hasn't been broken open and resealed at all. There are no cuts and lacerations.
Costumes in this case, the costumes we're both wearing are made by a lady called Kate Palmer, who was a costume designer, theatrical costume designer.
Kate Lane.
Kate Lane. Sorry, it's not
Kate
Kate
Lane,
Palmer.
isn't it?
Why am I thinking Kate Palmer? Yeah, it's Kate Lane. I don't know why I said Kate Palmer.
Kate Lane was our costume designer this year and for the year after at least, I think, and was excellent.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of the point in our career when we really start to differentiate the sort of characters of Morgan West. Love that bit. Love that bit. Characters of Morgan West, both like aesthetically as well as behaviourally, and so we are deliberately going to give Reese a sort of more shabby, not shabby, like working man, workshop-y vibe, and I'm deliberately wearing.
Yeah, as Liam says, this is supposed to be our workshop. And that tall stool I just put down, that went to Adelaide and back.
That went to Adelaide and back.
Twice.
That's twice seen the world.
It has. Been to America twice, I think.
Spread those cards face down atop the stool. Expertly done. Now, James can.
We don't do this on top of the stool anymore. We haven't for years.
Yeah, do you just run through them? I think
I just run through them,
don't you?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
It feels like one of those things where we'd have gone, well, we have to spread through them to show them. And to spread through cards, usually you need a deck of cards, you need a surface. So we're like, we'll use the stool rather than just going, I'll just spread through them. It's so obvious that there's one different one.
So what's happened is they've picked a card from a one-coloured deck of cards. It's gone into a different coloured deck of cards, and now they're surprised to find that card because it's kind of like an impossible trick for them. But the audience has seen exactly how it's happened. It's me just putting it in a deck and putting a seal on it and that sort of thing. So we're all expecting it to be their card.
Given that we are magicians and this is a magic show, if we were entirely honest, we do not think you would be that surprised, would you?
No, we did think that altogether it was rather too obvious. Yeah.
Liam also points out in the comments that the walk-in music for this, because it was meant to be set in our workshop, the walk-in music for this was like just us hitting things in your garage that Liam recorded.
And just like my garage now being an office.
Which is now the office you're sat in, but it was when it was just a garage.
No. What does it say? Cup your hands, just like so. If you would please, sir, over towards Mr. West. Cup.
So that card just says, cup your hands like that.
They're not just magicians. They're time travelers. So we took your card back in time and left it somewhere you would not miss it.
Oh, it's in the shoe. The card's in the shoe. It's remarkably difficult when I've got to the point where the card falls into the heel of my shoe. The number of times I tip it over and it just doesn't fall out. Like it catches on something. That's the real work.
Now, upcoming is one of my favourite moments that we do, that we still do now.
Oh yeah, this is fun to do.
So that's an apple that's just come out of Mr. West's shoe after he's been wearing it, a proper apple. It's a really nice moment and it catches people well off guard. There's nothing quite like using real fruit or real food in your act. It's just quite fun.
Also, there's a reason to produce it. We didn't just do it for no reason.
Bing! That apple, which in fact came from your shoe. Bing! Is there an apple for me? This trick uses 1 teacup and 1 sugar cube. 1 imitation sugar cube. 1 scrunched up roll of tissue paper for purposes of visibility from the back. Bing! The trick is a single...
The whole purpose of this trick is we wanted to write a trick where we were pointing out the lies that magicians tell. So every time Rob says something is true, it genuinely is true. And every time he says something is false, it genuinely is false.
I think the idea behind it initially was like, well, not the idea behind the trick, but the idea behind writing it was we wanted to write the kind of trick that Penn and Teller would do. And we thought it would be fun to, and a very Penn and Teller's kind of idea would be, well, why don't we just tell the audience every time we tell a lie? And then sort of the game became, well, what kind of technical lies can we tell, technical truths can we tell that make it clear?
Is about to go.
The noise for Paradox always makes me laugh.
It is the noise of a hooty horn, and I don't know why, but it feels an appropriate counterpoint to the ding and the buzz.
If I take the tissue and hold on to it nice and tightly, it also appears underneath the cup. Bing! Right, got it. So, if I take the tissue and put it into my pocket, bing, then it will of course travel invisibly, only to appear
The
underneath.
comments in Sourcel says he likes the simplicity of the lie detector. I'm assuming he means as in just being a card that says true or false. And we really thought at one point about having like a light up thing with like a green thing and a red thing or a lever or something. And it was like, you know what? You just need. I mean, we've done this before at gigs where we've forgotten the card, and I've just done being all buzzed to like, or just said true.
You, sir, you look willing to participate. Bing! Why don't you say there? So if I do the following. Would you say that the tissue was underneath the cup, bing, or would you say that the tissue was in my pocket? Now, I know what you are thinking. You are, of course, thinking that I'm a magician, bing, and therefore I'm a liar, bing.
Well, I was late on that one.
And you know that whichever you pick, the tissue will in fact be in the other, bing. So, philosophically speaking, the tissue is both underneath the cup and in my pocket at the same time. Bing. And it is only the very act of your choosing which determines its true location. Bing. You are, of course, thinking that the situation is almost identical, crudely analogous to that of Schrodinger's ill-fated cat.
One of my favourite lines we do, which is where we say the situation is almost identical to Buzz, crudely analogous to that of Schrodinger's ill-fated cat, because we're both science graduates. One of our like pet peeves in magic is people making really bad comparisons to like quantum physics or something and being like, this is just like quantum physics, when it really isn't. And we like the parallel here of essentially everyone knows there's two balls, and everyone knows wherever you say it is, it's not.
And we show people there are two balls. Just then we show them that there are two balls.
There's one there. You know whichever you pick, it's not going to be there. I'm like, well, that actually is a crude analogue of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, because observing the ball will change its location.
I have a theory. Yes, I believe that this is because the tissue truly is in my pocket, bing, and I believe that the tissue truly is underneath the cup, bing, which does of course call into question our very notion of truth, and where on earth the apple comes from.
You see, that is your own.
Oh yes, and that is yours.
The best thing then, I missed the vanish of Mr. Westapple because you're looking in the wrong place. That's a great. That particular moment at the end is great because people see a bitten apple and a bitten apple transports across the stage, and it really gets people.
Yeah, if you couldn't see it there, the apple on the second apple produced has a bite out of it. One of the struggles we had with doing that routine was that we use quite a small teacup. And when you go to Australia, all the fruit is massive.
Massive. And America,
like,
massive fruit.
Huge.
So in Australia we were using plums, and they rot.
Nectarines.
They rot horribly.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Also, interestingly, that routine is one of the few routines we do where in 9 years now the script hasn't changed, or has changed exactly a tiny amount. The way I deliver the script has changed, and it's now much better than it used to be. But the actual script itself hasn't changed at all. This one was something we cut about 5 years ago. We used to do this quite regularly. It's called Bubbles.
So those of you that saw the bamboozlement stream, the first of these streams, would have seen the opening bamboozlement where I did contact juggling, and we've spent years trying to work out how to catch up, or try to use those sort of skills again, and be like, oh, we could do this and this and this is contact juggling. And then a few years later, we just went, this is the worst bit in our touring show.
And it's got some nice moments like that production.
I think there's some lovely stuff in it.
The split, and it's just not. It's not up to the standard of the rest of it, so we dropped it.
I do like that bit where I rolled down.
Yeah, yeah. This is me going, oh, you're doing stuff that's really impressive. I can't do it because I can't.
I think this is also one of those things where some tricks don't play bigger than this kind of stuff.
I think this would be fine in a 60-seat room. I think even in this room it's a bit small.
In this room it's a little bit small. And a card trick with the person on stage, that will play big because the person on stage is reacting. And something like
the true false plays fine.
Because it's a verbal trick, it's largely about jokes and we're explaining what's going on as it happens. Whereas with this, you really need to be able to see what I'm doing. And like even from the distance of the camera, it's a little bit hard to make out those crystals. Not crystals, bubbles.
I mean, I think the other reason that we ended up cutting this was because this was a specially built set for this show. we can be quite sneaky with this trick. Whereas
Yeah,
touring,
we
can't.
loaded bits from all over this set at all times. Oh,
You dropped one! You
it.
dropped one!
I was about to say, the hardest bit in that routine is bowing while keeping the pyramid level.
Dropsy McGee.
But, annoyingly,
No,
I think we're going to miss
it's hard. I can't do any of it. So.
There's a bit coming up. How do we do it after this trick? There's a bit coming up, but I think the lighting change means you know what I'm going to see, where I throw those two hats. I grab them and throw them, and the bottom one will spin up in the air and I'll catch it again, and the top one will fly over to Reese and Reese will catch it.
So this is...
the lights will go down, so you'll miss it completely.
This is the first half now. We watched 2 weeks ago, we watched me reading the details of a bank card. This is now doing the coin drop, because the coin drop came after the bank card, and it was only some years after this that we put the two of them together. So this is the proto version of the coin drop trick.
Also, you can see the effort we're putting into our set, whereas we're using a brandy snifter for that. Now, at some point in this run, and it might have been before, I think we had two, it smashed just from dropping coins in it. It was quite a thin, delicate brandy snifter, and it just went smash.
So we've changed it now. We now do it with big, thick glasses. Proper, like, ooh, you're not going to break that glass.
From IKEA kind of glasses. You could probably get one in Australia.
Probably.
Someone in the comments asked how long you practiced contact juggling before you thought it was stage ready. I was contact juggling long before I was doing magic. I was contact juggling from about the age of 17. Juggling was always my first love. Nerd. And so that was more a case of a thing I could already do that we were like, we should really use this.
Mr. Morgan is blindfolding himself. When and only when you are happy that he cannot see at all. Feel free to...
So it's interesting that we used to have me blindfolded for this. We don't bother with that anymore. It's just kind of not necessary.
Also, as this became part of our other work and we started performing the other tricks, there is only there's only a certain number of times you can blindfold yourself, one of you, in an act and it not feel a bit. And so because we have a routine in our show Pearl Tricks that has me blindfolded, we were like, and then when we do intersensory perception, also in Pearl Tricks, Reese is blindfolded. We're like, we can't have a third blindfold trick, and we realised that we can do this trick just by Reese looking the other way.
So that's a postal horn that we found in an antiques fair on Gloucester Green Market in Oxford. And we used to use it for this trick, and we used to tour with it for ages, and we've stopped using it now because, again, it's kind of... We've developed a style that's a lot more free and a lot more easygoing and less... This trick especially feels a lot less staged than it used to, which is actually quite important, I think, for a trick that uses the sort of methods that this does, because it needs to feel a little bit more spontaneous.
Well, and also now what we often do is that I would be upstage of you and you would be right down at the front of the stage looking into the audience.
Like, so it just looked weird.
But yeah, because you're blindfolded, we don't need to do that. But usually you would have someone hold your gaze, which means that you would be at the front of the stage. And I think we played around with it, and because actually, often what would happen here, you can't tell on the camera and you can't tell from the audience, but Reese would be missing completely with that horn. It's very hard to point that at something behind you when blindfolded.
I mean, I think you can tell it's in a completely different plane. It's very downstage, that horn.
Very downstage, and so I think we just realised it might just be better to just do it where you're facing the audience and I'm behind you and it's clear that you couldn't see. Also, I think we started to do that as we started to occasionally perform this sort of impromptu or at cabarets and stuff where we wouldn't take stuff with us. We'd just turn up maybe in costume, borrow a glass, borrow a thing, and then bosh, off we go.
Close your eyes and see what you can hear. We promise there will be no nonsense on your lights. Close your eyes.
Also in front of the red waistcoat in the trunk on the right, there is a sign that says The Trouble with Memory, also from Crime Solving Magicians.
10 pence piece. Carol, is that 10 pence piece? Yes. Take another, same or different. Happy? Both 20 pence pieces.
I was about to say that.
2 20 pence pieces, yes.
So obviously there are far better versions of this that you can watch on YouTube, because there's the version we did for An Expert Magician, there's the version we did for Penn and Teller. It's become a kind of staple and a trick, especially in the magic community, that we're very well known for.
Yeah, this is as close as we get to a signature piece.
Uh,
Oh, this is the show where it broke.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's me picking up a piece of glass. That is.
There's that you look going, what's happened?
And this is one of the great things about doing this kind of blindfold work or reason looking is that sometimes stuff happens and you can't communicate it.
25 pence. £4 and 25 pence.
£4 25 pence. With a broken glass. Carol, can you cup your hands for that?
Oh yeah, because you have to pick it out of broken glass, don't you?
I now have to pick it out of broken glass, yeah.
When the pound coin changed, because it changed whilst over the course of doing this trick, I would tell people what kind of pound coin it was, whether it was a new one or an old one.
Yeah, so Reese could say that's a pound coin and that's an old pound coin, or you know.
Yeah, Clive, we added the card part of this in the early months of 2014, or possibly the late months of 2013. But the card part is from 2 shows ago, is from 2010. And the way we do this hasn't changed. It's never changed.
The way we do it hasn't. And part of it is that
£4 20.
we were doing a show in Oxford called Northern West Magical Menagerie, which was like a guest bill show, and on the way to that show at some point,
one of the acts crashed their car just
one of
outside
us
Oxford.
Oh man, Glenn crashed his car outside Oxford and couldn't make it, so we had to basically pull 45 minutes. There's the hat throw.
There's the hat throw.
45 minutes of material like out of thin air, and we went, well, we've got that bit with the card and we've got that bit with the coins. Let's do this. And actually, when we did it that once, almost like because we had to, we sort of went, well, that works nicely.
Mr. West and I pride ourselves on many things, including wonderful waistcoats.
Fine facial furniture.
And
This is dreadful.
This trick is rubbish. Yeah, this trick is really rubbish.
This was us going, we need 6 more minutes. I don't know what to do. I think this was the last trick we wrote. We barely tested it before we went to Edinburgh, and it's awful.
It's definitely the last trick we wrote. I don't think we previewed it in the things.
To join us for this trick. So, Madam on the end, would you join us, please? Thank you very much.
And this is classic us writing in looking back at past tricks and going, well, that idea kind of works, that idea kind of works, that idea kind of works. Well, smash them together, I'll get a good trick, right? No.
I think this was basically, for those of you that watched Bamboozlement and then the Time Traveling Magician's stream from the Village Hall will have seen
this is us trying to recreate biscuits.
This is us trying to recreate the biscuit trick with something equally twee, but it misses the mark so massively.
Basically, this is us trying to work out what people's favourite... Mr. West is trying to work out what people's favourite teas are and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like how you take your tea, how many lumps sugar you take, and things. And the problem was, that's a fun idea for a trick until you realise that most people take it the same way.
Most people take it builders.
Yeah, they like, I want normal, like, yeah, builder's tea with milk and maybe 1 sugar.
Thank you. Yes, and Catherine, that is for you. It's your name, sir. Neil, that is for you. And may I take the pencil? Thank you so much.
Oh, also, it's so handsy. Like, everything going on is, you hold that, I'll take that, I'll put this here, take that, oh gosh.
Lots of handsy business going on.
Like so. The right hand holding the teacup by the handle, like so.
Costumes in the show made by Kate Lane, costume designer.
And with our middle finger, or pinky if you will, extended thus.
What am I looking around for? That stool.
Lovely. Yes, start with you, if we may, sir. Would you please join me at...
Oh, yeah, so basically what we've got here is 2 identical trays with things on, with like 4 different types of tea on and some sugar. 4 tea caddies
with teas written on them, a bowl with sugar cubes in it, and a cup that represents milk and a lemon that represents, obviously, lemon. It's probably a fake
fruit.
So
bad.
We love a fake fruit.
I'm trying to turn around using a sort of device to look behind you at any point. Please do just say, "Hark, foul play!" All words to that. Yes, thank you.
The hark, foul play made it into another trick, though, because hark, foul play is the only funny thing.
Yes, that ended up in the new handling of the coin drop.
Shazam, if given the choice, which would you prefer? A fruit scone or a cheese scone? Cheese?
By the way, that is the correct choice of scone. Just
Arguable.
Earl Grey.
You are holding, sir? Earl Grey, marvellous! Now, next, what are we
This is just a really boring trick.
Yeah.
You can see what we're going, but it's just, you know, and again, it's just the Sweet Thief trick again, which was also from Crime Time Magicians a boring trick. And this is a perfect example of the danger of getting caught up with what can we do and not what would audiences like to watch.
Like,
if
it's
I
quite
were
clever.
in the audience, I would think this is boring.
Yeah, it's just because
And
it's boring.
I'm doing it.
The only good thing about this trick is its name. We used to call this trick Marlene Tea Trick.
But in the comments, it's also said, when did Mr. West start walking with a cane?
Mr. West, take sugar.
Around this year, I think.
You bought one in Brighton 2012.
So the one I bought in Brighton, I believe, is on the hat stand. Is tucked into the hat stand.
It is, yeah. That was 2012. That was our first Brighton.
It's a silver-headed cane I bought in Brighton, which I believe actually is like period appropriate for like when that cane is actually not just.
But it's too
design,
short for you.
But as in like is an actual Victorian cane. Yeah, I started walking with a cane in 2012. I don't know when I start walking in a cane in the show. So yeah, like as in I actually walk with a cane sometimes. Because I've got disability.
2016.
Yeah, it took us a while, partly because we do a lot with our hands, and it is difficult managing a cane on stage, because it's so nowadays, if you ever see me perform with a cane, it'll be a crook handle, because then I can hook it over my arm. But even then, you still have to really think about, put this, hook that there, da-da-da-da, and it really interrupts everything else you're doing. So the first few times I was or one time when I really badly blew my knee out, and I had to walk with a cane on stage, I was barely in the show because I was so busy going, I can't pick that up because that's there, but if I put it there and it falls over, I've got it. It's a nightmare.
Liam says the physicality of this is quite nice, and the holding up stuff before revealing it. I think the elements of this trick are perfectly reasonable. I just think the trick itself is bloody awful. It's just really dull.
It's just like, you can see what we're doing here, but it again falls into that trap of
we do the same thing 3 times.
Doing the same thing over and over again. And obviously you're doing it in slightly more complicated ways each time.
People got that wrong as well.
Did I get it wrong?
I think something went wrong there, because I sent them away in a very big round of applause kind of way, so I reckon that was wrong.
Go, get off the stage. Yeah, that means something's gone wrong. I mean, this trick stinks, let's be honest. Like, it's not the staging's terrible, although weirdly I think now I'd put us closer to each other. Because if we're back to back, there's no reason for us to be stood that far apart.
And you look up to see a gentleman sat opposite.
No, it's a different cane.
Who would you rather see? Mr. Morgan. Or myself.
That's a cane that was bought decoratively. Some years before. Replying to maple syrup.
On 3 if you would, please.
Yeah, bed.
Collect everything you wish. 1, 2.
Some Scottish person yelling out at us.
Face front. First of all, your T's. English breakfast.
Well, and simply like those are too small.
Then
they should be like different colours or something, so you can tell what they are.
Milk, no lemon, and last but not least, any sugar. No sugar, no sugar.
Oh, empty hand.
Yep.
That's the climax of that trick. What a boring climax.
The other problem with that reveal is if they don't pick any sugar, the end is really rubbish.
Just really like,
because what you want them to pick, like one time someone did pick like 6 sugars, I seem to recall, and that was actually a great ending, but it's so heavily reliant on the person.
And I think
is this shadows?
I believe this is, or is this balloon animals?
No, this is blue animals. This is balloon animals.
But yeah, like the problem is that sometimes what happens when you're writing a trick is what you'll do is you'll go, oh, it'd be really cool if this happens. It'd be really dramatic if they say 4 sugars and I go ding, 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 and I drop 4 sugars in one line. But you then think, go, will anyone pick 4 sugars, or will most of the time I just be opening my empty hand and going, see, none? Oh no, this is automaton.
This bit's weird.
This is a really weird bit. So again, you can get away with doing slightly more avant-garde stuff. The premise here is that Reese is broken down and I'm about to fix him.
And it turns out that Mr. West is actually a magician on his own who has built an automaton to do the work with.
I think it's just like, it's not a terrible idea for like a manippy routine, but it is. We are not the magicians to do this kind of thing, If Hector Mancha did this, if Shoma did this, it would be amazing. When we do it, it's a little bit clumsy.
I mean, that's because they'll put a lot of work into something and we necessarily won't do as much work. You really used to grab my nose every day with that. Yeah. There's not a lot of nose to grab either. Look at it, there's nothing.
believe this. I can't remember what it says, but it's basically meant to be like instructions.
Oh yeah, and there's that blueprint. I'd forgotten that existed. Yeah, Liam says he remembers when we showed this to him in the kitchen. Yeah, it was. I remember the first time we showed this to Liam in the kitchen, his reaction was, and we just rewrote the entire thing because it was, yeah.
I mean, it's not a. So,
but those are tiny cogs that he's pulling out.
Yeah,
of me.
you really can't see it on the screen, but I'm pulling little metal cogs off of Reese as if I'm removing broken bits or whatever. It's just like, it's not a terrible idea, but
it's just not very well executed. It's a perfectly interesting idea. It's just it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, this show has like 2 or 3 silent tricks. 3 silent tricks. We really like the idea of silent tricks in this show, and only one of those silent tricks survives to this day.
Oh, we end on a silent trick. Of course we do, yeah.
Yeah. In this show, Mr. Morgan is an automaton.
Yeah.
It could be that this show is done without him. He might be on holiday or something. You know, it could be anything.
You can help us with a bit of a quandary.
Again, so I believe the video is slightly out of sync here, and you wouldn't have seen it, but there was a spark there just as restarted.
Nothing. Mr. Morgan and I are considering adding a third member to our duo of deception.
Pet or mascot?
Pet, or indeed.
So we'd like
So these lines are actually stolen from a trick that we did in 2009, which involved flinging a soft toy pig out into the audience, and we once knocked a glass of red wine all over a lady's white dress in a cabaret.
Flopsy, Rover, Mr. Hedgehog.
Rule number 2. No names denoting
The introduction there of the character, we're basically, the premise of the trick is we're going to add a pet. We need you to think of names, and there are certain names you can't pick, because if someone picks the name Rover for a pet and you guess it, that's not a good name. And so you have to sort of establish certain things that they can't have. And one of them there we say don't pick obvious names: Flopsy, Rover, Mr. Hedgehog. I'm pretty sure that comes from we were in the car with Liam in the comments and our producer at the time, Heather, who nearly ran over a hedgehog. And one of us went, "Oh, Mr. Hedgehog," and everyone in the car heard it as Mr. Hedgehog.
Mr. Hedgehog.
Up top.
Hello, good day,
And
chaps.
we just decided we put that in the show as like, let's put Mr. Hedgehog in the show.
It's
So
also
let me get
got one of my
Hedgehog now, and
favourite.
we'll call it Mr. Hedgehog. And in fact, Sarah Stott, if you're watching this at some point, please call a hedgehog Mr. Hedgehog.
We also it's got one of my favourite jokes in which we say no names that are overly complicated, including Isambard Kingdom Brown Owl, which I really enjoy. I do enjoy that one.
Tell you what, a lot of the props in this are much smaller than they are now. So those signs I turned out are now much bigger signs we have. We'll replace with much bigger signs, and then I think actually we just got rid of them again. I don't hate the old pinning a blackboard up to a thing that's already there.
No, it's quite nice.
It gives it a workshopy vibe, doesn't it?
Unlike Mr. Morgan, in fact.
Is that bear blue?
Yep.
Is that we were running out of balloons at this point?
Our bird.
Or in the old days, did we just not bother buying one colour of balloon for each animal?
Reflection and tweeting.
Not unlike Mr. West, in fact.
No, I think we did.
But any decision is entirely yours. Which of these animals is definitely not time?
I think now when we do
So
this as well, we give them all
we
more
still
credit.
do this. We still do this trick, and we spend a lot of time sort of animating the animals and sort of puppeteering them, and really getting people behind them.
So they are the 4 animals the balloon animals we know how to make. That's it.
It's your decision, Jake. Do not look at her.
So it's little changes like now Rob knows where to pop the bear such the head remains, and then I stamp hard on the head. And you can do that every time. Also, we're writing the names of the animals up here. We did a preview of this at the Ox Fringe, and I remember sitting at dinner with Liam because the preview was so elaborate and like we had reveals all over the place. And all of a sudden we went, I've got it. And we went and bought a bunch of keyrings to help us do the reveal. And I remember we were in Zizi's having pizza and just coming up, we're doing it wrong.
It's worth noting at this point, actually, I can't believe we've forgotten to mention this. At this, we were working with the director for this show, which I believe was the first one we worked on, because this is the first show we worked with Poppy, isn't it?
Yeah, this is P. This is P's first show.
So, yeah. So we worked with the director advertising. They don't direct us anymore, but Morgan, who works with Meta Theatre, who was also involved with Heather, who was producing us at the time, and they did a lot of work in not just creating the difference between the characters of Morgan and West, but also just making the show more of a theatrical thing.
That's a squirrel, by the way. I'd like to point out that that's definitely a squirrel.
That's definitely a squirrel.
Definitely a squirrel.
Visiting lonely elderly squirrels and doing charitable work in the squirrel community.
He really is one heck of a squirrel.
Obviously,
Heck of a squirrel.
all they're doing is whittling down what animal is whatever they've named it.
By the looks of it, is it say Tim?
The squirrel is not.
Yeah, Tim. There you go. It's called Tim.
It's a shame the bird is the least good one.
Yeah,
The
bird's
least good
worst.
of the models. And the one that you can puppeteer the least.
And the most indestructible, it seems.
Nice and indestructible.
Not the squirrel, though. Not the squirrel either. Which leaves us with Time, the bird.
Oh, Time. It's called Time. Time. Weird.
Time bird.
People are weird. People are mad.
Jenny,
Time
bird is for you.
Why do you call it
And you
Time?
can the entire time,
I quite like Time Bird. It's quite an epic name for a bird.
In fact, you can.
Yeah, but it sounds like Wybird's poor cousin.
Mr. Morgan,
I like it.
It's the Time Bird. Stop. What time do you call this then? Cuts to Wybird. You know, that's it.
before you came up here.
Another little set note, while we're going to inevitably reveal that we've guessed the name in advance. The board there that at some point we're going to turn around and I'm going to draw on the back of it.
Beside the head of Jenny is a note.
That board is covered in like blueprint style diagrams, and some of them are real blueprints of like things we got off the internet because you can get them from patent offices and stuff, old patents. But a lot of them are hand drawn ones we made ourselves that are detailing the method of the tricks in the show.
Yeah, every trick is detailed on that board. And if you
explaining
looked
how
at it
it
on the
works.
way out, you could see how every single trick was done.
If you know what you were looking
Tempus. Tempus. No.
Oh, so it says PTO, and there's
We're doing a hilarious Latin
joke, which now only I do, and even then is
barely a
shorter.
joke. But we thought it was funny because like
Apprentice,
PTO, which means please to know,
Timotei.
usually groups of letters is Latin.
It's for you.
So they get a metal pet name tag that says on it whatever the name is,
Time,
whatever
the
the
bird.
animal they've chosen, time the bird, whatever animal they've chosen, and it's a really good trick. It's a really nice trick, and it's in the envelope, and it's really impossible. And they hold on to the envelope in the beginning. It's a cracking little trick, and it's really fun. Does not work outside of Britain.
No.
In Australia, the Australians
died.
did not get the sense of humour. It died every day.
Basically, you have to find it funny that we're kind of bringing animals to life
Murdering.
just to kill them.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that's a funny idea, that trick dies.
So this trick's a bit experimental.
Yeah, we got quite experimental with this show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have for you this evening a special guest joining us. A great man, a talented magician. It is our pleasure to introduce Monsieur On.
Hello, old chap. Put her there.
I really thought you would be French.
No, just like the name. And a certain...
Je ne sais quoi.
I do not know what that means.
Shall we?
Yes, best have. Good evening, ladies and
There's a
gentlemen.
David Bowie joke coming up that no one ever gets.
Tonight I'm here to present my world-famous impression of Her Majesty the Queen.
So actually, what? We booked you for the cutlery.
A cutlery trick.
Yes,
Oh.
not an incorrect.
Do you have some?
Oh, yes.
So the premise of this trick basically was that the classic bit of spoon or fork bending that people do, we realised like might look better. The problem is it's a very, very small thing to do. Like bending a fork or bending a spoon is a very small thing to do on stage. So we were like, I know, let's do it in shadow.
And then we made
can
it very
make
silly.
massive.
Mr. West!
And then for some reason we then did it with a shadow puppet.
A very crude shadow puppet.
A very crude shadow puppet.
Good sir!
Which it almost took ages to make.
And the whole
Hence
premise
we
is that
had
he
not.
wants to do his world famous Queen Victoria impression, but we have hired him to bend a fork or a spoon. It's bobbins. It's such bobbins of the highest quality.
Good. Mr. West, bring me the... Yeah, script here, just below the tines, and here at the base. Good, yes. And now, begin to twirl.
And the problem with this bit is that
There's no fidelity. There's just no fidelity
there's
at all.
no fidelity of it. But what we mean by that is that the audience has no sense of having. Obviously, we've shown someone in the audience that fall, but not enough people that you could say, oh yeah, we've all seen that fall.
Look, the fork.
And like that is the one bend that doesn't work in shadow. So why did we start with that one?
Why did we do this trick, mate? Why did we do this trick?
I love this trick. It's so mad. It is so mad.
No, a miracle of cutlery.
It's got one good line: a miracle of cutlery, and that's it.
Sorry, what? We do not really have time for impressions.
No impression?
No. If we could just do this.
Very well. Sir in the front with the spoon. Are you satisfied?
I do. I mean, my favourite is this that he wants to do an impression of the Queen.
Would you be happy?
Yeah.
It's not the magic. It's just the bringing a character on who's obsessed with doing an impression of Queen Victoria.
Mr. West? Parallel to the right, sir. Parallel to the
Also, this is demonstrating my incredible inability to do any voice that isn't my own at this point.
Yeah.
Ben! Ben! Spoon!
Also, the kind of the high, stupid over-the-topness of it isn't quite over-the-top enough to make it funny. It feels like it might be sort of vaguely serious, and it's really not.
Higher upwards unto the sky! Bending evermore! Yes, bending higher and higher! Rising further and further!
There wasn't a speaker in the radio at the start, Liam. We always talked about putting one in, and we never got around to it. Because this was before Bluetooth speakers were really a thing.
Am I not entirely comfortable with the spirits presentation?
No.
That was okay. It is exploitative and cruel, so we would rather avoid it.
Yes, sorry,
I should have said.
My fault entirely, my chap. No. Ghosts, come to me!
Ghosts is bad, actually.
Ghosts
is
are
bad, yes.
Cool?
No.
Goblins?
Certainly not.
Fairies?
No.
Pixies?
No.
Voodoo?
Voodoo.
You do?
Do what?
Remind me of the bay!
Shall we get on?
Best have.
Like 4 people laughed at that David Bowie joke.
Yeah. I mean, I think the original Noodle and Alex Tester sum this up perfectly, which is this is a bonkers fever dream. And it absolutely is. Would you believe we did this in Australia for 40 shows the next year?
Didn't we do it? Did we do it on we tried to do it on the ceiling for a bit because it was so hard to get something to project the.
Yeah.
Bend against the will of the...
Part of me thinks that one day we should do a show which is just all of the really mad, over the top
Ideas.
stuff
Yeah.
we did. Basically, all of our least good working material. Not the stuff you can do in any environment. Just be like, please commit to this before you come in because we're going to do some odd stuff.
Yeah. Elias and Salted Dust, did we find a director that specifically works with magicians? No. P. Burton Morgan runs a theatre company called Meta Theatre, along with their partner Will. And P had worked with double acts before. We knew P through a friend of ours, Tom, and Liam, in fact, knew P. And P had directed Frisky and Manish's first show, and so we knew that P was good for working with double acts.
And we kind of
and we trusted them. We really
want
trusted
someone
them.
who worked magicians. Like, we wanted a non-magic director because sometimes directors can get too caught up with worrying about methods or how things are done and that, and people were great because they didn't care how stuff was done. And occasionally we'd say, "Can you stand here?" and we'd say, "No," but pretty much we just wanted the director for the character and for the theatricality of it.
Evermore bending up, rising from the base, wilting from the tip, bending and rising and wilting all at once.
I mean, you can tell you're improvising those lines.
Evermore.
Can you?
I am
Yes, he then says, "I'm spent," which I always find very funny.
So I feel like you could maybe get away with doing this now, but the way you'd have to do it, because obviously on
It would be a kid show, and it would be different. It would be very different.
You could do it in a kid show, and I think on a bigger stage you could light it such that you could see me as well. The problem is that I'm in pitch blackness, because that's the only way of making Ombre visible.
Here we go.
Her Majesty, sorry, her Queen. What, one?
We should have already
Two?
had time.
Too late! We are not amused.
didn't know how the trick was going to end. So the trick at the end is that at 90 degrees to the shadow puppet is a cardboard cutout of Queen Victoria, which is actually a very recognisable silhouette. And if you just turn it very quickly, it looks like it magically changes. That's the gag.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I love that change. Like,
it works really well.
Something of a break with tradition. I thought that I would attempt this final trick on my own.
So this is us trying to recreate Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Just straight up trying to recreate Harry Potter.
Exactly. Yes. Just to see what it is like, really. After all, one never knows what the future might hold.
Unless, of course, one has a time traveller, as one is. In fact, that's two of them.
Yes, that still cannot hurt, can it?
We can but hope.
Yes, and of course, as this is
but
my...
yeah, so this is our Narnia trick, because we just both went, Harry Potter was good. What shall we do to follow that? I don't know. Narnia. Done.
Chronicles of Narnia. I'll do it.
I don't trust any of these newfangled...
And again, the premise here is really laboured. The premise is that Reese is going to do a feat of mind reading. While they are doing it, in order to record
I've asked Rob
what's
to
going on.
record Mr. West to record it for posterity, but we don't trust newfangled recording devices, despite the fact in the last show we used a camera. So he's going to draw it like a courtroom artist because it's one of his skills and amateur talents.
Yeah, so,
What?
which is particularly odd because I am not that good an artist, so I'm just doing stick figures.
It's such bobbins.
It is such a mad... It's funny, I look back on this show and I'm very proud of it because a lot of our material that I think we're really known for comes from this show.
But
True and
also,
false.
50% of it's great
Coin
and 50%
drop.
of it's dreadful.
As the thing is, like, true and false, the coin drop, I mean, basically, all the stuff we worked in Adelaide, really good. All the stuff we wrote when we came back, rubbish. But, like, we basically had two ideas, which was, like, some solid working material, or lazily trying to recreate one of our former tricks. And
Well,
then
I think part of the problem
three
was
mad things.
we put a lot of effort and worked in a lot of the tricks leading up to Adelaide, and then we got back from Adelaide and sort of took a little bit of time off and were doing Village Hall gigs, and then sort of had to write the rest of the show in about a month, and didn't really know what made a good show or not.
And
Yeah, so
How I do
Liam says
enjoy-
he likes the dynamic of Rob being unimpressed with the trick. This is the start, really, of the one of us getting really frustrated with the other person. More specifically,
yeah, this is
Mr. West
this is
getting
the
frustrated with
birth
Mr. Morgan.
of Mr. West being cross with Reese.
So he's coming over with a series of release forms for us to both sign, because obviously if he's capturing our image, we need to sign release forms because we thought it was a funny idea. We have a bit of an argument.
The forms are individually dated, Mr.
Also, it's one of those kind of jokes that would become a thing we do quite a lot. Is that we do a lot now of you interrupting me, and I think this is the only time we ever did me interrupting you.
Yes, good. Now, as I was saying, I have here a large wooden box, and contained within this box is a...
One moment, Mr. Morgan, one moment.
I've just remembered what's in the box.
Capture your particular...
I just remember what's in the box as well. If it is what I think it is.
It is what you think it is.
A little bit still.
I'm standing most still.
No, but a little bit still.
Yeah, this is definitely a gag now we do the other way round. And would be funny the other way round,
It would-
rather than just
well,
slightly
for,
awkward.
For kids especially, kids would find it very funny. You constantly interrupt me. It's half of our kids' material.
The events are about to unfold. Events related inextricably to these. The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S.
I
Lewis.
mean, we even do the same reveal of the books.
Same
we
staging,
even do the
same
little-
staging as Harry Potter.
And your left index finger. And with this finger, touch the back.
Yeah, this is just a shameless rip-off of our material, isn't it?
I mean, it's why they've never been in the same show together, mate. Because they are
That's
identical.
why we cut this basically immediately.
Having that, page 120. Please turn to page 120 in the book.
Or in this one, they can literally pick any book they like. So that's
They
an
can, yeah,
advantage.
but even so, it's nonsense.
Words such as and or could. No? Good. Please do commit that word to memory, the first word on page 120. And once you have done this, pop the book down somewhere. Wonderful, thank you so much. Now, Stuart, I should confess this is not a feat of mind reading, however, it is a feat of memorisation. You see, there are 7 Chronicles of Narnia and a mean average of 300
This is
words.
me doing a very mediocre Darren Brown impression.
197 pages in each book. Therefore, there are, roughly speaking, 420 million words throughout the Chronicles of Narnia. And I have memorised the location of every single one of these words.
Everybody needs a hobby.
Yes.
It's funny, isn't it, that I've memorised the location of every single word, and yet I asked him to look at the first word of the page. It's funny, that. isn't
Yeah,
it?
could have had them look at any word, but then they'd have to count to it so you knew which one it was.
It's also funny that I asked them to say stop and pick a page rather than just sort of, here's a book, pick one.
Yeah.
Funny, isn't it? Funny how that works.
It's fixed rubbish, isn't it?
It's dreadful.
You are thinking, Stuart, yes or no of the word.
Well, actually, the problem with this trick is that the ending is actually really quite impressive and a really nice reveal. It's just what we wrote leading up to it. Absolute tut.
Raining as in to preside over rather than to precipitate.
Liam says he thinks there's a trick that we cut just before the Ed Fringe. I think there is. I think it's the it was the trick that became it was the juggling, explaining time trick that became Bubbles.
Yes, there was. We were juggling. We were doing a multiplying billiard balls routine that also had juggling in it. That was so unreliable. So unreliable. Dropped it all the time. I seem to remember that toy horse being quite expensive.
A little shaky, Mr. West, but I'm sure things will pick up.
So I get the word wrong. I think it's going to be the word horse. It's not.
Terror, Simon. I would like to point out that was entirely Mr. Morgan's. So you really did nothing wrong. And since this went so terribly badly, I shan't imagine Mr. Morgan will be wanting a record of the event. No. So if you'd like to keep this, Simon, it's just
no prizes for guessing what's going to be on this huge roll of paper.
just a small record of everything that happened. You see, there is Mr. Morgan and yourself, perfectly to scale. Then Mr. Morgan had you pick a book.
Obviously, I'm drawn massive.
Yeah.
I should be honest, at this point my mind did wander as I was finding the trick rather slow, so I just started to doodle instead, and I only drew this sort of wing-back armchair covered in a sort of capital letter A.
You're sort of doing a Mark Gatiss impression.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Silver.
So basically, esoterically, the reveal is drawn of the book that they picked, which they never specifically name, and the first word. But importantly, at the end as well, he's drawn. Mr. West has drawn an occupation, and then we asked him for the first time, by the way, what do you do for a living? And he happens to have worked out what their occupation is. It makes no sense, but it's weirdly got the reveal has got the grammar of a good magic trick, so audiences like it, despite the fact it's terrible.
Even though, why would I have suddenly guessed this guy's job out of nowhere?
As I said,
It's got the grammar of like a Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent magic trick.
Dreadful.
and then my mind wandered further. I just began to add bits.
Also, I know we're going for me being slightly dour and down in this whole thing because I'm not doing this trick, but man, I'm giving this nothing.
Yeah, it's awful. It's all sorts of awful.
I know I'm deliberately doing it low energy, but boy, am I doing it low energy.
And then they get a big piece of paper at the end. Isn't that fun?
You guessed the job right. Niall Lockhart in the comments says, I joined the stream late and thought, I recognise the tea trick. Hang on, that's me.
Amazing. I'm sorry you were in that trick. It's dreadful.
Soz.
We really do hope that you enjoyed watching our show just as much as we enjoyed.
Thank you for sticking with us for 8 years, though. That's impressive.
Yeah, still here. Can't have been that bad. Well, like we said, half the material in the show is quite good. It's just half of it that's complete madness.
Or in the streets.
So this is us explaining that we're doing a show at midnight and are exhausted, and there's only like 2 tickets left because it was only a 20-seater and they used to release the last 2 tickets as this show went up.
It's one of the nightmare things about doing a show in Edinburgh, especially in a small room, is that they always hold tickets back for press or industry. So, like, theoretically, if, I don't know, the BBC or the Queen want to come into your show, they've got a couple of tickets held back until the last day.
Spoiler
And so
alert,
we'd
neither
have
the BBC nor the Queen has ever been on our show, but Martin Lewis, money-saving expert, has.
But it means that basically your shows can't truly sell out in advance without releasing all those extra press tickets and whatever. And so every day we'd have to be like, right, it's a 20-seat show at midnight. We've sold 16 of the seats. The last 4 have just gone on sale, so it's not sold out. Even if you couldn't buy tickets for it, you could now buy tickets for it.
Information about that and a batch, yes. Before we go, although one more trick.
So it's now going to cut because the next video is slightly better lit, but it's still pretty badly lit. And this is our clowns routine, which we still do this day. Oh, seamless cut there.
I mean, that wasn't bad. That wasn't dreadful. Could have been worse. This is one of my favourite things that we do. I adore this trick. It now works slightly differently. It's kind of structured a bit differently, but I blooming love this trick. Remind me later, we've got a Skype Tweedy.
Oh, we do, yeah.
I'm going to write that down.
So Reese has got a little red clown nose there. This is just the lighting of the trick, by the way. I'm not radioactive.
Radioactive, radioactive. Yeah, we tried lots of different pieces of music, as Liam points out. This piece of music is called Atlantean Twilight. And that's someone's mobile phone going off.
Because the people are sat right next to the speakers.
Back in the day, that used to be a thing.
So it doesn't read that well there, but the idea is that I threw the first nose away and then back in the box there's another nose.
And I'm not going to get fooled by it again.
This whole trick comes from the premise of magician. One of those things that we like tricks to, well, often not in this case.
And it's gone.
But generally we like our tricks to make sense. And there was a bit of path that magicians often use when using sort of red as props, where they'd say, oh, you know what this is? It's a clown nose. And then they do magic tricks with it. But we always thought it was odd that they never... If it is a clown nose, why do you never do anything with it about... you know,
That's a lovely little transformation.
it's not a clown nose, it's just a bit of red fluffy. Like, let's do a trick where the ball is a clown nose.
Yep. So every day you'd throw those noses at me that have been in your mouth, and it's minging every day. Hit in the face with your spit, and then I have to catch that one, and that one's been in your mouth for a long time, and it's always quite wet.
Yep.
And that's
we're
make it
discussing
vanish,
gross
which
One of these tricks I do now, you go, bloody hell, COVID. Oh. You wouldn't
I mean,
do this now.
you're standing so close together that it's fine anyway. You know, it's like...
We want so during this run at Edinburgh, we want.
Oh right, here we go. Oh, hang on.
Okay, we'll do the reveal now. Tell the story.
So this is me going, fine, I'm not going to give you the nose. Or am I? I've been clapping every time to do a magic trick. It's been a clap. Apart from the magic wand, there's inconsistency. That's me doing a very bad yawn. So now there are literally 150 of those noses all over the stage, and the audience are about to walk out through the stage.
So I don't know if Reese remembers this. One day during the Fringe, after the first trick,
we hadn't said it.
We hadn't said it. After the first trick of, we're in the rush to get things in. The tournaments are so tight. In fact, we're going to leave this video running, and you will see the tech team rush to the stage and take the set down while the next team.
So that's Rachel. That's Rachel, our tech.
But
and then there's Andy and Lou. Yeah, everyone's just rushing to the stage to take it apart and try and put these
and
red
stop
noses
people
away
stealing
before
all
people
those
nick them. And that's Heather in the white shirt there. She was producing us at the time.
But yeah, one day after the first trick, I turned to Reese and went, we haven't set clowns. And we had to set... Obviously, some of it was prepared, but we hadn't put it in the right places. So in all the blackout bits where the music played in the show, we had to run around and set up the trick. And then we got it in time for the last one, and we were like, oh, close one.
There's also so that the backstage for this was like a room adjoining the dining room, and there was a channel that used to sort of enter the stage from alongside the audience. And one day we were doing the show, and we were both exhausted. It was like 3/4 of the way through the run. We were both exhausted, and we just said to each other, like, we need to give this. We were starting to dip in energy in the shows. It was the middle of the week. The numbers weren't great, and we were. So Andy looks a bit like the wrestler Daniel Bryan. Andy is a lovely, lovely man, but quite the mountain.
Lovely guy. That's like Daniel Bryan. Yeah.
And so we said, right, I tell you what, we're going to do this energy. And so I started sort of like bouncing up and down backstage, like, yep, going to do energy. And I ran out on stage, tripped over on the way out, and ran into half the set and almost destroyed everything.
I think you hit that white trunk on the left, which nearly totaled everything.
Everything.
And I was
you were
cross.
furious. You were so cross.
livid.
You were absolutely furious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, and this is the reality of Edinburgh now, is that the show has just ended, the audience is still walking out, and we are like stripping down the set.
It was a 15-minute turnaround time. It was 15 minutes from the end of our show to the start of the next show, which included getting rid of all of our show, getting rid of the audience, getting the audience in for the next show, and getting their set in and sound checking. Like, we were lucky the show after us was the Fitzroy Radio Hour, which was a radio play live on stage, so their set was very little.
Yeah, it was like a table of Foley stuff and then some microphones that I don't even think were real microphones.
Yeah. So it was, but yeah, it was just, and all of this got pulled into a room the other side of behind us, and we had to sort through it. It took an hour to pack down the show. It took forever to sort it out.
And we have to sit and do it very quietly.
Yeah, we still do clowns. We do it in a slightly different way, though.
Yeah, it's not quite. It still closes our show. But basically, if you're gonna spill Red Bulls everywhere, you want to close on that.
Yeah.
But that now closes the sort of 2-half touring version of Time to Magicians.
We once did it at the end of a family show in the studio room at the Royal Albert Hall. We were playing the Royal Albert Hall studio room, 200 seats. And at the end of the show, kids just ran at the stage and tried to grab everything. It was awful.
Because they've done the horrible thing of sitting all the kids on mats at the front away from their parents, which is the worst idea in the world for many reasons. And part of it is that the kids essentially go feral and they live in a sort of lawless Mad Max-esque world.
Yeah.
And so the second those things ran over, one kid went to the stage and started grabbing them. And once one kid's done it, they've basically given permission to the others to do it. So rather than ending the show and taking a bow, we literally had to go like into our microphones. You need to bring those all back, and we had to like go around the room just taking them. It was such a weird end to a show.
Yeah. The Lacoist, if that's how you pronounce it, apologies if it's not, says this was the first of our shows that they saw and that the last trick was stuck in their head and went to every Edinburgh show since. Well, thank you very much. That's really cool to know.
I'm very glad.
That is super cool to know. Yeah, Liam says favourite Edinburgh Fringe 2012. Yeah, I think so. I think it was one of ours.
It was such a great Fringe.
Completely exhausted.
We were exhausted. But...
yeah. We were living round the corner from Pie Maker this year, weren't we, rather than above Pie Maker. It was quite a nice flat, I seem to recall.
I think it was quite nice.
I seem to remember.
So now the next show is in. This is the
there you go. So that's Fitzroy Radio Hour coming in whilst our stuff is coming, because they were only allowed to come in once a certain amount of our stuff had been cleared.
Yeah, and we'd be like, now you can now come in, because we're bringing everything down one channel, like one corridor at the side, so there is just not room for it.
Oh, and so here we go. They are putting away a front row of chairs. So in that day, we sold better than them, interestingly, because the front row was added on.
Yeah.
So that day we'd sold enough for them to add a front row in. Oh, there's the old sack trolley that we used to use to move that white trunk around because we thought it was heavy. Whereas these days, I just pick it up. I just grab it from both sides and just pick it up and move it and throw. Like, yeah. So that was Clockwork Miracles.
That was Clockwork Miracles, a show we're still very proud of. And to this day, I think that show stands up. Like, it's obviously insane.
And it looks great and it sounds great, and 50% of it's rubbish. But
and I think that is the point at which we like this 3-show period of Crime Solving Magicians, one we watched last week, and this one, and then the one we're about to do, Grand Adventure, is us basically going, all right, we've found our style, and our style is kind of mad, but this is how we do shows.
Yeah. Wonder how expensive 150 clowners are. About 75 quid plus postage. Yeah. So, and how much do those trunks cost? The yellow one cost 80 quid from eBay. The blue one cost 50 quid from a housemate.
Yeah.
So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to chat to us about it or anything, we'll stay around for another 10 minutes or so, 10-15 minutes. So do pop stuff in the comments that you want to talk to us about, and we can talk about that. Plans for the future. So next week, we're going to do Crime Solving Magicians. Then we may have to move day. Oh, Grand Adventure. We're doing Grand Adventure. At some point, we are going to have to move day because I think we're doing a lecture one Tuesday night. But we'll keep people updated on what's going on. So we might have to move day at some point. After we've done Grand Adventure, our plan is to do one where we watch all of our Penn and Teller clips, including the unseen one.
Yeah, because we have three. That means we have 3 performances on Penn and Teller for us. So we thought we'd talk through them and talk about the evolution of them.
And also talk about what happens backstage and all of that sort of guff.
Tell stories, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Then after that, we're going to watch our other bits of TV that we've done. The interesting one about that is we did the Slammer in 2013, CBBC's The Slammer, very specifically season 5, episode 3. If you know anyone who has a recording of The Slammer, season 5, episode 3, Balloonatic, then we would love to get a hold of that because we don't have a recording of it. So we were going to talk about it and watch the trick in a different way.
I mean, we did True and False, the trick we did from this show. That's the trick we did for the Slammer, and so we're going to show another video of that. But yeah, if you happen to be sitting on a recording of Series 5, Episode 3 of the Slammer.
It's actually called the Slammer Returns by this point as well. It's technically the Slammer Returns Series 1 or the Slammer Series 5.
Get in touch. But if not, so we thought we'd do a Penn and Teller episode. We thought we would do an episode about talking about other sort of TV work. And then after that...
If people want, we were thinking about carrying these on in a sort of slightly more streamery kind of way, where essentially we'll turn up for an hour or two whilst we're working on something, like some print or some costume or a bit of script or something like that, and we'll sort of work through it whilst chatting and telling stories and all that sort of stuff, if there's interest in that. If it turns out 3 people turn up, we'll do it once and never again.
But we thought we thought we might basically give you because we're doing it, we see this as a bit of a kind of a glimpse behind the curtain thing, that we thought a way of doing that with our current stuff, because we don't want to just watch shows we're currently doing, because that really is just us going, oh, here's work we could be doing. But
it's a bit sad, really.
But also, we have work we could be doing in terms of print design and costume design and whatever, so we're like, well, actually, we could just do that and talk about the work that goes in, the behind-the-scenes work that goes into doing our act by actually showing you the work that goes into it. So we might try that. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? But as ever, we're not going to start doing this in a kind of Patreon way, or we might move over to Twitch at the same time. We'll work out if we can simulcast. Was that the word you used earlier?
Maybe multicast, simulcast, multi-stream.
Rob used some words earlier. I wasn't paying attention. I was thinking about probably dinner at the time, actually. In case you're interested, parsnips, potatoes, sweet corn, Brussels sprouts, and vegetarian sausages. It was using all the things that came in the odd box. This is always going to be free because it's just a bit of fun. Just a bit of fun.
Just a bit of fun.
Just a bit of fun. But someone very kindly, we said in our first stream that if you wanted to throw some money at something, throw it at food banks. Someone very, very kindly did throw quite a large amount of money at food bank, the Trustful Trust, because we've been doing these, which was really, really very kind. So thank you to Vicky for that. So if anyone does able to, then do.
Yeah, if you would like to show your appreciation for these videos, give some money to charity.
If you're able to.
If you're able to, that would be great. But
if you're not
otherwise,
able to,
we're just
then
keep
don't.
doing them for fun and to keep the madness at bay.
Yes. So Mabel, I found the transcript for the Slammer episode. You found the website that I found, which weirdly has the transcripts for all of the Slammer episodes. And I found someone on YouTube who has all of Series 4, half of Series 3, and 2 episodes of Series 1, neither of which are our episode, rather frustratingly. So yeah. DMSSMD, or SSSMD, can we ask who the lecturer is with for? You can ask. I can't tell you, but I can't remember.
Can't remember.
Leicester Magic Circle?
Someone.
Oh, Blackpool Magicians Club, Leicester Magic Circle, and one other. Home Counties Magic Society?
I have my phone right here. I will look at the calendar, because if it's next
See,
week...
I've got the YouTube comments on my phone, so I can't check.
We should tell people right now if it's not next Tuesday.
It's not next Tuesday.
Well, good. It is not next Tuesday, which is good, which means... yeah, we've got several Tuesdays away before we're starting doing lectures, so we're fine.
Yeah, there we go.
We're fine. So this time, so 7:30 next week? 7:30 again?
Yeah, so last call. You got 30 seconds. If you've got any chat, then do give us your chat. It's nice to know. I'm very, very pleased that people do type in the comments and talk to us, because it makes us feel less alone, because I am alone in this room, and Rob is alone in his room, because obviously
I've got
lockdown,
2 cats in this room with me, I'll have you know.
Yeah. I've got guinea pigs and rats next door, but they're very much next door and will be very angry if I go and fish them out.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, do we have a favourite or least favourite trick that we've cut? If we've cut them, it's usually because they're rubbish.
Yeah, like we cut Bubbles because we were just like, it's not bad, it's just the worst bit in the show. And
I think a reasonable version of Bubbles is actually on our YouTube channel. I think you can go and find
yeah, there is a reasonable version on YouTube channel. But I think we just kind of went, you know what? The show would be no worse for being 3.5 minutes shorter and not having that in it.
Yeah. That's the thing.
But usually if we cut something, we're like, yeah, I'm done with that. I don't miss stuff we've cut. Except maybe shadows. Maybe we should just bring out Omra, do the Victoria change, and then move on. Be like, here's the thing, buff, that was it, bye.
Yeah, done. I think we've thrown him out. I think we had 2 versions of him.
We did chuck him.
Both out.
We did chuck him. We'd make him better now, I think. He'd be better now.
I think we spent a bit of time and all money on it. That's the other interesting thing, actually, about all of the shows that we've watched so far. Clockwork was built on a tiny budget because it was the point where we were very, very aware that we had just left our jobs with real salaries and pensions.
Yeah, I think that might have been a big part of why the set was basically all our old stuff. It was us and bits of paper that we'd stuck on some mount board, because it was just going, right, what have we got and what can we make out of what we've got?
Also, my garage was full by that point. I mean, it's full now. I mean, if there's also a cooker in it currently, but we have a stuff problem. I just paid the invoice for our storage this morning, and that hurt. Especially when you're not doing anything with it. But yeah, so these shows were all done on what I would now consider an incredibly tight, shoestringy Fringe budget, whereas these days the shows are not. They're not done on a massive budget, but they're done on a bigger budget. So going through a few questions, what's the shadow?
I'm typing it in the comments. Monsieur Ombre, which is the French word for shadow, because we're smart.
Yeah, Mr. Shadow. It's Mr. Shadow. Liam's looking forward to Grand Adventure next week, as am I, because it's great fun. Pat Hammond says, we have a dog that you know. Poor old Puzz. We haven't seen Puzz for a long time.
No.
I imagine he's quite happy at the moment.
I think it's sadly
probably quite comfortable. I think he's fine. Jubble on Toast says, enjoyed your lecture in Stoke-on-Trent. Very very glad. Thank you very much. The Ace Magpie watching these streams makes us feel less alone. Makes us feel less alone too. So thanks for watching. Mabel says, do you miss playing small rooms? Is there stuff that you just can't do with larger audiences? You've got to. So it's weird.
There is stuff you can't do. There is stuff you can do in small rooms you can't do in large rooms. Do we miss it? No.
I dislike. So the weirdest experience I've had was the time we did the Nottingham Playhouse, where we were surprised at how well Time Travelling had sold, or was it Parlor Tricks? I can't remember which one it was. It had sold like 500 seats. And I remember doing the show and just feeling a bit hollow coming out of it the other end. I think it must have been Time Travelling, because Parlor Tricks was the one where it rained on the audience.
Yeah, no, it was Time Travelling. We did Time Travelling there, because the Nottingham Place is one of those weird rooms where it takes a while for the sound of the audience to hit you, and you really lose.
And it's the first time we'd done a room like that on of our own show. We've done it a few times in little guest spots and stuff like this, but the first time we've done it of our own show, and I just found it really odd and really difficult. I didn't enjoy it. I like an audience that I can see and hear and feel. So I like anything up to about 300 seats, 300 seats.
But like, there's obviously you can have a nice time performing for 40 people, and that's fun to do in a kind of a one-off kind of way. But from a work perspective, I don't miss doing the small rooms, because that usually means you're having to do 3 times as many gigs to make the same money.
Yeah.
That's the thing you don't miss, because it's more enjoyable to do a show when you're on top form than when it is your run ragged and that's your 3rd show that day or whatever.
Yeah. Julian N says, would you consider coming to France for a lecture or maybe a show? Would love to see you perform live. Yes, especially because as far as I'm aware, France
we can now work visa free for 90 days.
We can work visa free for France in 90 days. Not to get all political about this, but good lord, what an awful thing Brexit is.
If you book us, we will come.
Yeah. The original Needle says, I heard a rumor you guys were thinking about puppetry at some point. Do you like incorporating it into the shows? I like the way that the original Noodle says, I heard a rumor that you guys were thinking about puppetry, as if she is not 3 rooms that way. We originally wanted to do, we were either going to do a magic show or we were going to do a puppet sketch comedy show, including a rather grim and dark sketch about a puppet throwing itself off a building and then realizing it was a marionette, so it just dangled there.
Yeah. But yeah, there's loads of stuff like that we like, and one of the things we do a lot of is over the course of a career, as you can see, we do some sort of odd out there stuff. And yeah, so if we're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do metal bending in shadow because then it looks bigger? And actually that does ruin metal bending somewhat because of the way it works.
Yeah. It's an inherently 3D thing.
It's an inherently 3D thing a lot of the time, actually. But the other side of that is that going, like, you kind of go, let's do it in shadow, and then going, we talked about
it. We could do it in 3D shadow.
We talked about this. But then we other kind of people go, well, we like puppets and we like playing around, we like making things. let's do it with a shadow puppet. And then I can't remember where we came up with the idea of if you turn a shadow puppet 90 degrees, you can change what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, I think that only stayed in the show because of the Queen Victoria bit.
Yeah, there's the fun bit. How big a crowd can you get in your average large room show? I mean, there's a lot of assumptions there. It depends on the theatre. The truth of the matter is, because most people don't know who we are, it depends entirely on what standing audience the theatre has. And whether
we rely entirely on standing audience of the venue. Our children's work tends to sell better. Like, I would say that our science show will usually do between 200 and 400.
Yeah, the science show will usually do that. Yeah, if not more these days. I mean, say those days.
Those days. Even more those days. But yeah, our magic shows do less because magic shows for adults are less popular.
When performing close-up, how do you handle people who are solely into the method and don't care about the story? Bop them on a nose, or is that sharks? I think that's sharks, actually. Isn't it? Yeah.
No,
just don't care. That's up to them. People enjoy magic in the way they enjoy it. If they ruin it for other people, we'll walk away. If not, that's fine. Up to them.
I meant to. There was when I first started learning, the closet magician James Brown has a lovely tip, which is if you get busted doing something, if your attitude is just so,
yes,
then the person loses all their power. They go, I saw that, and you go, so, and they go, good point. And that's a big part of it. And the other one is, if someone is there, like if you give someone a deck of cards and they shuffle them and they start doing stuff you don't want to do, or if they start grabbing cards from you, just walk off.
Yeah,
just walk off. I've never been at a gig where I think
you're changed to the people.
Yeah, you change the people, because usually there's other people at a close-up gig, and if someone says, "Why didn't you perform for them?" you can be like, "Well, they were grabbing my cards and ruining my thing. You pay. You know, if you're getting booked for a gig, they're paying you to do your magic. So if you say I couldn't do it for that person, they're ruining it. No one's gonna mind."
Yeah. Last couple of questions to wrap up. Have you written much new material during lockdown? Nope. It's really hard to write. Being creative right now I'm finding it fantastically difficult. And we don't need to. So we actually are, especially for work, we are very much a creative by necessity kind of act. If we've got something that we're working towards, great. If we haven't got something that we're working towards, we take our sweet time.
Yeah. Like, we have basically, after years and years of churning stuff out and turning new hour of material every year, we are now kind of very happy to be in a situation going like, we'll write stuff in dribs and drabs and trickles as it comes, but really not having strict deadlines is great.
Yeah.
And it allows us to do this stuff and spend all day wrestling with, virtual audio cables and stuff.
Yeah. Have you thought of doing a Victorian sideshow? If not, do you mind if I do? Carry on. Fill your boots.
Go for it. Maybe I'll stop you.
Yeah. What is a 3D shadow? Excellent question. So it's a vaudevillian trick, where in the same way, if you have anaglyphic 3D glasses, which are the ones that are two color filters, red, blue, or red, green, if you give an audience those and project a shadow onto something using a red light and a blue light, or red light and green light as appropriate for the glasses, that are slightly offset. So you get that sort of, like you'd have in like a 3D cartoon, you get that sort of double shadow effect. When you put the glasses on, it recombines them. And if you rotate an object in shadow, you wouldn't see it rotating. But if you've got the glasses on and you shine the light, you see it as a 3D object rotating. It's a really odd and really cool effect.
It's weird. So in our science show, we do it live. So
we got a big sheet. We have a big sort of a 16-foot wide sheet.
We pull up in front of the stage.
And everyone's got a pair of 3D glasses, and we do stuff with it, and it's so much fun.
It's really good fun.
Because you push your hand towards the screen, and everyone goes, "Mah!" Because that old 3D trick of kind of pointing at the camera and what have you, people are really used to seeing that, but they're not used to seeing it in shadow. They're really not used to seeing it in shadow.
So hopefully in next year, once all of this is over and sufficient numbers of people are vaccinated that we can go to theatres and stuff again, then we will be back on the road doing 3D shadows and other stuff in our science show.
And with that, it's time to bid you all a fond farewell.
So we will see you next week at 7:30, right here. By here,
we're 7:30. Are we going back to 7:30?
Oh, we're going back to 7:30, aren't we?
Oh, we're going back to 7:30. Great, because last time we said we're going back to 7:30. Apparently, we're going back to 7:30.
We're going back to 7:30. Slightly earlier.
He's changed his mind. He's changed his mind. Last week he said we should do it at 8 again.
I'll change my mind. That's your 7:30.
There you go. With the 7:30, Grand Adventure, which is the most experimental we get with shows of that ilk, because
it is Morgan and West at their peak weirdness.
We had decided that we just wanted to write a play with magic tricks about us.
Yeah.
Like, it's properly self-indulgent, but
it really
it is also great fun.
And has puppets.
Yes.
So.
It does. Got Langton Matravers, place in Dorset.
Well, see you then.
Anyway, that's spoilers. See you then.